You are muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Mr. Joybert, and hello, everybody.
Hello.
Can we do video here? Is it possible to do video?
Yes. So sometimes we have network issues, that's why. So they get to do video, it may affect the strength of their network. So that's why most people are.
All right.
Yes.
That's fine. I actually prepared a PowerPoint presentation which was supposed. So maybe those who want to get, who are sure to get a good internet connection and who can go video, that would be good for them. So let's try and see how it works. If we cannot support it, then we can switch to audio. That's just fine. All right, we're 8 of us in the row so far, and I can see Defon, Ate, and Teresh already. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining. I'm so delighted to be part of this mini mBA, which is being organized by BMD Africa. And it's an amazing opportunity for me to share with you the little I have in terms of knowledge and experience today. And I'm supposed to be sharing with you guys on developing institutional strategic documents as a visionary executive. And this assignment is broken down into 3 segments. The first of which will be a monologue. I'm supposed to present for about an hour. And then the second part of it, which is also subdivided into 2 parts, I'll be asked some questions from the moderator, and then I'll be asked questions from the participants. That was instruction given to me, and I'm just so excited. If you can have video, then fine. I'm going to share my screen, and for those of you who are going to have video, that's fine. Please confirm if you are connected with video and you can see my screen, please.
Yes, you can see your screen. Everybody can see your screen.
All right, thank you very much. So like I said earlier, we're supposed to be presenting on the developing institutional strategic documents as visionary executive. I am aware that the participants for this mini mBA or this particular session are business executives who are either running their own show as entrepreneurs or they are working for a corporation somewhere. So whichever be the case, we are good. So we are expecting that at the end of the 2 hours we're going to spend together, I'm going to help you participants to become more familiar with the various standard documents that you're supposed to prepare as business executives, and then as well as trying to grasp their importance and how these documents can help you as a business executive in decision-making and consistent growth. So I have identified six key documents, which I'm going to share with you. And this list is not exhaustive, but when I looked at the program design and participants, I felt like this could be what will play the magic for us to begin with. So the 6 key institutional strategic documents I've prepared for us. We have a strategic plan, we have a business plan, we have an action/operational plan, we have an organizational structure or an org chart, we have a master budget, and we have policy and procedure manual. So those are 6 documents which I strongly believe will help you as executives, as visionary executives, to be able to perform at best. So we're going to take the pains to look at each of these documents. And like I said earlier, we're going to focus on trying to understand how to prepare those and then what's going to be their importance so they can enable you to take good decisions and then grow in your business. To begin with, the first document I want to share with us is a business plan. I'm sure we are business. We are in a mini MBA program, and either most of us have been practicing business over the years, or for a couple of times now, or most of us were about to get into business per se. And of course, I'm sure we've heard about a business plan, and I'm sure we've also seen one. But I don't know how much of experience we've had in trying to elaborate a business plan. But just to say that a business plan is a very powerful strategic document, which as a visionary, you can't do without it. It is that document that explains the what and the how of your business. What exactly is your business all about? Who is behind the business, or who are those behind the business? What is the mandate in terms of vision, mission, and philosophy, values, and all of that? And of course, what products or goods and services are you offering in the marketplace as a business or as a company? And then how does it work? How does it benefit the target population, the customer segment, or the market, or the masses, in terms of making their life easy, better, having quality services of products, and having a faster delivery, etc., etc. So in summary, a business plan tells you the what exactly of a business and how does it provide services or the products. Now, the importance of a business plan here, I want to pin it to three key aspects. The business plan can play the role of internal reference guide. It can play the role of stakeholder engagement, and it can play the role of a fundraiser. So to begin with, how do we use a business plan as an internal reference document? You know, business is like driving. Those of us who are used to driving, if you're driving on the highway, you're moving from one town to another. You have an idea of where you want to get to in terms of a destination, but for you to get there, you have to start visualizing the distance in segments. So you have, like, say, the first 100 meters, the first 1 kilometers, for example. So how are you going to get there? What you need to get there is up to how much of clarity you have. So as an internal reference point, you're using it at what we call in French tableau de bord, like a dashboard. This is where we are. This is who we are. This is how we are wired in terms of values. This is our mission and our vision. This is where we want to get to. And of course, this is what we want to achieve as results. And then this is how we're going to get there. So as you start the business execution from day one, the business plans now becomes that reference point where you go back from time to time to try to find out if what you set out to do in the very beginning is exactly what you are doing, and how well are you doing that. Of course, it mustn't be 100% exact and perfect, but at least it gives you a guide to the point where if you're going out of the track, you're going into a space of deviation, you can always bounce back on track and say, this is what we set out to do originally, and you have to fall back on track. So that is the importance of a business plan as an internal reference document. So it helps the managers, it helps you as an executive to be able to understand where you're going to. Still on the internal reference point, we understand the dynamics that not every business owner is a business manager. There are people who own businesses, but they don't manage the business. And there are people who own businesses and they are charged with running and managing the business on a daily basis. Whichever way, the business plan is a very important internal reference point, because as a visionary who owns a business, it guides you and your team to be able to get clarity. And as a business founder who does not want to manage the business, it gives your executive team and the operational team clarity and direction as to how to go about it. That is how important it is. The next importance of a business plan is for stakeholder engagement. You realize that at one point, you can start a business, prepare your business plan as a solo entrepreneur, and then you have that clarity of your idea now, which is documented. You can now engage stakeholder by trying to get people on board. I take, for example, for myself, when I started as a solo entrepreneur with the venture I'm currently working on, I realized that the team I need will not fall in place easily because of the needs in financial resources to pay salaries to staff. So one of the ways I did to engage stakeholders is to get co-founders. So, and when you get a co-founder who did not share in the original mission or the original idea, the way you can share with them your thoughts and the idea is by documentation sharing. And the business plan here is a great way to be able to share that document so that they can understand your thinking, we can understand your idea, they can understand from where you're coming from and then where you want to go to. Then they can make valuable inputs to either improve on the initial idea or to adopt what you guys want to work on, and then it gets over from there. So this document engages whether you're having co-partners or co-founders in the business to come and join you. And of course, you also want to get this to be shared to your mentor or to your coach to be able to give you non-binding decisions or advice that you can take it or you can leave it to guide you. So that is how it helps us to engage stakeholders. And the last importance of a business plan is that it can help us for fundraising. As a visionary executive, sometimes you want to take off with minimal resources and you want to start knocking at some investors' door, you want to knocking at some financial institutions and some banks to raise funds. So the business plan can be used as a fundraiser to be able to secure either startup funds to take off, or maybe you have some little funds to take off that you need some financial support to raise funds that can enable you now to capitalize with the expansion and growth. So summarily, business plan depicts the what and how of a business, and then what the business provides and how it does so. And the three importance is it serves as an internal reference point for the operating staff and the visionaries, and it serves as a stakeholder engagement document to be able to either lobby for support from co-founders and the partners, and as well as help you to engage a mentor or role model to be able to give you insights as to how to go about it. And lastly, to raise funds. So that's the first document we are looking at. The second document is the strategic plan. Unlike the business plan, the strategic plan helps us to be able to carve a roadmap which is specifically between 3 years to 5 years. It's a long-term roadmap that you're carving out, and then it helps you to spell out specific roles and phases how you're going to implement the business, maybe quarterly or biannually. The strategic plan also helps you to spell out the tasks that are supposed to be implemented, what milestones you hope to achieve, and then the steps you need to be able to achieve those milestones, how you're going to drive the business forward. I know most of you are thinking if the business plan and the strategic plan is not the same thing. Yeah, those two documents are not the same thing. In some cases, they may play the same or similar role, but they're entirely different. So permit me share with you just a key difference between the business plan and the strategic plan. The business plan, like I said earlier, covers the who and the what of a business. Meanwhile, the strategic plan gives you the how and the when of the business. So when the business plans tells you about who is behind this business idea and who is running the business, the strategic plan tells you how you measure success as you go about business. What key performance indicators are you going to set out from the beginning so that when you achieve them, you can measure them, you can quantify them, and you can qualify them to say, I achieve X, Y, Z milestones. So that is a core difference. The business plan and the strategic plan, they are not the same thing, though they can play similar role in some circumstances or some instances, but there are two key documents which of course are quite different. The third document I want to share with us is the action or operational plan. The business plan and the strategic plan gives you a broad overlay of the business in terms of roadmap. You are thinking long term, you are thinking broadly. It's a broad-based perspective. But then you're looking at a 5-year strategic plan and a business plan on how to get there. You don't know exactly how to start. It's like eating an elephant meat. They give you a whole elephant, and you cannot eat an elephant by just having one bite. You have to start eating the elephant meat in little chunks. So the action or operational plan is that document that helps to break down the strategic plan or the business plan into smaller bit sizes. So the strategic plan and the business plan gives you a long-term and broad-based perspective. Meanwhile, the action plan gives you an outline of the day-to-day tasks you require to be able to keep your business running. And most often, you can carve out your action or operational plan within 3 months, that's quarterly, within 2 months, or within 3 months. It all depends on you. There is no standard, but most often, 3 months maximum or quarterly is ideal. So the operational plan also lays out now, it brings together the strategic plan and the business plan. Remember, I said the business plan talks about the who and the what of your business, while the strategic plan talks about the when and the how. Now, the operational plan or the action plan brings it together now at a shorter scale. It lays out the who, the what, the when, and the how of the daily operations of the business. And the operational plan is meant to define also how human, financial, and physical, of course, equipment and technological resources will be allocated to achieve short-term goals. And one powerful thing about the operational plan or action plan here is that it enables the team members on board the business or the company to get fully engaged. Not everybody is gifted to see long term. Some people can see tomorrow and they implement all it takes to achieve tomorrow's goal. You give them the next tomorrow, they can build up the tomorrow's success into a whole week, a whole month, and a whole year. So this operational or action plan actually enables the visionary executive that you are to communicate and engage the operating employees who are charged with implementing the business activities or operations on a day-to-day basis to gain more and more clarity. And there is this powerful approach of developing an action plan by spelling out what has to be done, and you now list the activities to be done. Then you now define the start date or the expected start date of that activity, and then the expected end date of that activity. We all know how powerful deadlines are. So in a strategic plan or business plan, you will not feel the impact of having a deadline as to putting the start time and end time of a particular task or activity. But in an action plan or operational plan, you will now have that clarity. Then one other good thing about an operational plan is that who is charged in carrying out that particular activity or that particular task. You spell out now the lead person who takes lead in doing XYZ activity or task. And of course, who are they going to work or collaborate with, etc., etc. Then when this clarity now is gotten, it also gets them to be able to give you a clearer picture of the financial resources you need, the physical resources they will need in terms of office space and equipment, and of course, human resources in terms of the team. And this goes a long way now to start making you understand if the current team you have on board your project or your business or your company is enough to be able to deliver at best. If not, you now start making plans to be able to recruit or hire additional heads and more people. So whatever the business plan and the strategic plan can do for a business executive, it can only make sense for it to be implemented judiciously where you can carve out a 3 years or a 5-year plan and break it down into chunks that can last for 3 months, for 1 month, or for 2 months. And that particular document is what we call an operational plan. Very, very powerful. And before I proceed, I would like to call your attention to the fact that the operational plan is now the adjustment factor in your business operationalization. So some people say business plan and strategic plan is just thinking in the wild, thinking in the future, having a mental picture of what you want to see as a business executive. But then the operational and the action plans now gives you a guide as you start implementing your business plan or strategic plan. You now start getting used to reality. The things you set out as strategy, if they are not working, you now have to change the strategy because you have tested them against activities, against operations, against concrete actions. So the operational or action plan is very, very important because it informs the strategic plan that we need to change strategy at this level. It informs the strategic plan that we set KPIs and we set milestones that were over ambitious. And sometimes when you set over ambitious goals and over ambitious milestones, over ambitious results to be achieved, when you don't achieve them within the first few months or years of running your business, it can become a discouraging factor to you. So your operational plan, your action plan enables you as a visionary executive to see how far your strategies, your milestones, and your projections are realistic. So it reports on a day-to-day basis, and it gives you the insight to go and now adjust the strategic plan and adjust the business plan. Of course, we should be able to know that the business plan and strategic plan are not a standard, what's it called, an iron jacket that fits the way it is worn and cannot be modified. That document is just a work in progress, and it has to be updated as regular as possible. And that update is mostly informed thanks to feedback from the action or operational plan. So far, we've covered the first 3 documents which are key. The first one was a business plan, the second one was a strategic plan, and now the operational or the action plan. So if we have now been able to operationalize our business, we now have clarity as to what we are doing, how we are doing it, when we hope to do what, and with who we hope to operate. Let's now look at another important document, which is the 4th institutional strategic document that is key as visionary executive that you are. That document is an organizational chart or an organigram. Most often, this document is a one-pager, but it's very, very powerful. An organizational chart gives you clearly, it shows you clearly the relationship between one department and another, the relationship between one functional unit of a business and another. And of course, it also shows you the line management structure of a business. It shows you the reporting channels, who reports to who, and who is answerable to who gives instructions to who, etc., etc. So the organizational structure is very, very powerful because it is the picture that shows you, like a football field, how the players are positioned in the football field. Let's take that example. There is a coach who has a football team, and he goes into a 4-4-2 strategy. Some will go into a 3-4-3 strategy. Some goes into a 4-4-3-4 strategy. So it is the organizational structure that enables you now to have that clear mental picture as to who is playing left back, who is playing right back, who is playing midfield, who is the sweeper, and who is the attacker. If I should use that football scenario. Now, the organizational structure or the organigram is divided into 2 subs. There is a structural organigram and there is a functional organigram. The structural organigram helps to visualize the complete organization overlay, and it depicts how the business or company will look like at maturity. So to say, a company that has 100 employees now does not start 100 employees. But then you already know exactly that at growth, at optimum operations level, we're supposed to have an accountant, a marketing director, an XYZ personnel, a human resource manager, etc., etc. At the very beginning, when you're starting a business, you mustn't have all those key positions and staff in place at the beginning. You must not have all departments well spelled out and structured at the very beginning. That is where a functional organigram now comes into play. It now carves out the team that is active at the moment. You can have a team of 2 or 3 that is playing the role in implementing the business at the moment. That is what's going to be the functional organigram. So the structural organigram is very, very important in the sense that it helps you to be able to see the needs in expansion and growth in terms of units and departmental structuring. It also helps you to be able to see the need in manpower and staffing. Because at the very beginning, when you have a little or a lean team, a small team to start the business with, maybe those who buy your vision, those who give you buy-in and they want to start giving you trust in implementing the business, they may want to start just by becoming 3, 4, 5 staff members. That is pretty fine. So you may begin by having just a finance, maybe a finance officer or a bookkeeper without having an accountant. But the structural organigram has to capture that at maturity, this company is supposed to have an accountant. So the role of a bookkeeper now grows and develops into the role of an accountant. Also, a functional organigram is also good in the sense that when you spell out all the different roles in the structural organigram, so even if you're supposed to have 10, 20, 15 employees, you spell out their roles, their function, and then you also spell out what kind of profile will fit in that particular role. It now helps you now to be able to recruit the kind of staff that are just perfect, because sometimes as visionary executive, you start a business because you don't have the resources to be able to pay the kind of manpower that you need. You start by recruiting people who don't have the skill set that fit into the particular role. So this is where the organigram comes in. When you have spelled out the organigram, you now spell out the description of the role. You now spell out the profile of the ideal person to fit that role. Then when you're not doing headhunting, you are able to know that this person fits in X role or not. And then if you're hiring somebody who maybe has the educational qualification but hasn't got the experience, you can now be able to know how to train them on the job. If you're getting somebody who has the experience hands-on but hasn't got the educational qualification, you can now know how to prepare them for refresher courses so they can now do on-the-job training, etc., etc. This is how it's being done. So exactly like I was saying, a functional organigram is a feeder and what grows into the structural organigram. Mind you that no matter how small your team can be, some people can play multiple roles. One person can play the role of an accounts clerk, the role of a bookkeeper, and the role of a marketer. It doesn't matter, but everything is supposed to be spelled out. So if you are acting as a role player, you wear the cap of a marketing manager at that time. If you are doing accounting, you wear the cap of an accountant. So there's no problem. And as visionary executives, you will see that from the very beginning, you are playing 4 or 5 roles at a time. When you place a flyer for the services that you offer, you become a marketing executive. And then when you send an email to prospect somebody who has maybe sent you a message on WhatsApp or on Facebook, you are there doing marketing role. When the person asks for delivery and you deliver, you become the operations manager. And when they have to pay money to your services that you have rendered, it becomes a bookkeeper or the cashier or the accountant. But you are the only person playing that role. And in structured startups that know where they are going to, when Edmond is sending you an email as a marketer, I wear the cap of a marketing professional. When I'm sending you an email because I want to acknowledge payment of your receipt by sending you an invoice or a receipt, I play the role of maybe a finance officer. So all those roles depend on how you structure your business. So trust me, guys, an organizational structure is very, very key. And don't be scared that your structural organigram is too big, but of course it gives you clarity and you are able to start building a functional team that can grow into a solid team that will occupy the entire structure at maturity. I don't know if you follow me up to this point. I know this is supposed to be a monologue, but let me know if you follow me up to this point.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes.
All right, let's proceed. So the fourth document which
Yeah, I'm following up, but the network is not really going. Network.
is the transmission delayed from my end or the reception is delayed from your end? All right. So the fifth document is the master budget. The budget is so powerful in the sense that no matter how wonderful your business plan and a strategic plan is elaborated, and of course, your operational plan has been spelled out such that those who are going to do different tasks have been well spelled out, it is important for you to understand that without resources, you can't do much. So this is where a budget document comes in play. And there's what we call a master budget. The master budget is an aggregation of all the other budgets that have been produced from the different or from the various functional areas of a business. So you ask for the marketing department to produce the marketing budget. You ask for the production department to produce their production budget. You ask for your human resource department to produce their HR budget. And then you ask for every other unit in the business to prepare their budget. Now, you now put all of that together and you come up with a master budget. The master budget now aggregates all the budgets of the other units and the budget of the other functional areas. And this budget now includes projected financials in terms of income that you hope to achieve, either income from the sales of your product or service, or income that you hope to get from raising funds as you implement your business and go ahead with your activities. It also gives you an idea of cash flow forecast. If you're hoping that you're going to raise some money from sales, you can now forecast that in your business and then you have that under forecasted revenue. And of course, the business helps you in getting your budget serves as a financial planner so that as you're moving with your business, you can only do much when your budget can service the resources that you need to implement your business plan or your strategic plan or your operational plan. So the business here is very, very worthwhile to be implemented, but the master budget is what can service the business. It's like the grease, is what can service the business. So let us know here that as business executives, as visionary executives, it is important to understand that you can have X amount of financial resources at the beginning. You can have an anticipated source of income that have been secured. For example, you have a business plan that has been submitted for funding to the banks or to some investors. And when that business plan has received an okay for financing and for investment, you realize that you can now budget that particular amount of money you are expecting from those investors or from the bank in your budget. If you have some customers that have already placed orders for your business, you can already indicate how much amount of money you can secure from them over the period of time. So of course, business is mainly forecasting your income and expenses, but the master budget is what gives you an overall expense and income heads when it comes to carrying out your business operations. What this means is if you don't have the resources to service your business operations, your budgeting helps you to know how far you can go from the resources you have at hand now. And when you need to call for support in terms of calling for additional financing midway as you go ahead with your business implementation. Now, budgeting is very, very crucial. And as business executives, we should be able to understand that two key guiding principles should inform our budgeting. When you are doing budgeting, we have two aspects: income forecast and expense forecast. So when you're budgeting, you make sure that when it comes to expenditures, you try to take the maximum amount possible that you can spend for your business. So if you're budgeting for rents, maybe for a startup that you want to budget for rents, you have not yet secured the venue, you have not yet secured the facility for your business, you want to budget for rents, budget 50,000 francs, for example, and then if you end up having a facility for 35,000 francs, fine for you. So for budgeting, make sure you take the maximum amount for expenses when you're projecting your expenses, and then you take or consider the minimum amount for your revenue or income. So if you hope to get a 10,000 francs from a customer, please try to get the worst case scenario expectation by budgeting that, okay, worst case scenario, I can earn a 5,000 francs. If you want to project sales from customers, try to overestimate how much you will cost you to acquire the customers and deliver value to the customers, but try as much as possible to underestimate how much you're going to get from the customer. So those are the two guiding principles on budgeting. You take the maximum amount for your expenditures, and you take the minimum amount for your income. So in case you have a deficit or a budget surplus, you can easily fit and adjust it as you go ahead in carrying out your business operations. So that is that for the budget. And the budget is the fifth document which I'm sharing with us as visionary executives. The sixth and last document which I have to share with us is the policy and the procedure manual. This is a very powerful document, and I'll tell you why it's powerful. But before I get to tell you why it's powerful, just so you know that the policy and procedure manual is a document that helps visionary executives to provide them with the basis of internal control system. It helps you to set criteria and guidance for business process decision making. And of course, it provides direction and guidance to ensure that transactions, to ensure that procedures, to ensure that records are uniform throughout the company or the business. I take, for example, if you have a cashier or an accounts officer or an accounts clerk, it is the policy and procedure manual that spells out that for our company policy, you are not supposed to keep cash handy in the cash till or in the petty cash or in the drawer excess of 50,000 francs per day. It's just an example that I'm using to illustrate. So these things are documented in a policy document. And you realize now that when people are working on the business, when people are working in the company or the organization, you as a visionary executive has already prepared a procedure and the policy manual, which spells out what has to be done, what is supposed to be the day-to-day norms in terms of practices in the business, in the company or in the organization. You have to spell out who does what. When it has to do with purchases, is it the logistic officer who does the purchases, or is the admin officer, or is the HR officer? You spell out the role of who is supposed to do what. In the course of spelling out what is supposed to be done, you also spell out now how it is supposed to be done. So who is supposed to do what is supposed to be done, and then how is it supposed to be done. I take, for example, if you want to do purchase or you want to do expense on behalf of the company, in my organization, if we want to buy something, we want to spend some money on something, we have to first of all make finding as to who is the potential service provider of what we want to buy. So if we want to build a website or want to update our website, We have to request for service providers who are building websites. You have to now ask them to send you their service offering and their pro forma invoices. When they now send, our policy states that we go in for the person who can give us the best service offering at the lowest cost possible. We don't use the lowest cost to compromise quality, but we stick to our quality norms, and then we now get to know who is going to provide us the best quality possible at the least possible price or cost. Now, you cannot be telling people this every day, that for you to be able to spend money, you must be able to do X, Y, Z. When it comes to spending money, our finance officer knows that you're supposed to request for payment. There is a requisition form which is being done, and then somebody has to approve the requisition, and then somebody has to disburse the money. So for any financial transaction, 3 persons must be involved, at least. The person requesting for money to be spent, it can be a functional head or departmental head, or some other person who is leading a particular project team. Then once that request has been done, some other person has to be able to study that request and approve of the request. In this case, it's always the top management, either the operations manager or the CEO. You approve that request, and once the request has been approved, that money has to be disbursed by somebody. So these things can easily work well when you keep doing them on a daily basis, but it is good to document them so that the procedure of doing something is written down, so that whoever is charged of doing that thing knows that this is their responsibility and this is their duty. And of course, they now know who they are answerable to and how to answer or to report to their superior or to their supervisor. Now, policies and procedure manual take time to establish. They take time to write them. You don't just sit overnight and write a policy and procedure manual. It is the document that informs how you run your business operations, how monitoring and control is being done, and how decision making and reporting is being done. Now, it is important for us to know that in the beginning, a policy and procedure manual is just what you have in mind as to what you want to see as ideal standards in your business operations. It is only when the operations of the business are being implemented on a day-to-day basis that top management or the regional executive that you are start seeing that the procedure we set or laid out in the beginning of our business implementation is not flexible. It is too stringent, and we can only modify it by updating the policy document. So you keep polishing the document based on feedback from your team on the ground, based on feedback from the challenges that you face in running your business, based on feedback you get from other competitors around your industry or your sector. And of course, when you do benchmarking, you know what's the best thing to be able to do as a business manager or the business executive. Then you start adjusting your policies and your procedure to the point where you become very confident and you can now ascertain that this policy can respect this procedure and this procedure can respect the policy. Once that is done, it now gives rise to what we call an SOP, a standard operating practice. You must have been able to implement your procedure manual. You must be able to implement your policies over a particular period, at least for the first year or the first cycle of your business plan or strategic plan. So for the first 3 to 5 years, you are not sure that this thing can work, this thing is realistic, based on logistics, this thing can happen. Then, when that document is prepared, which I call SOP, the standard operating practice, then that becomes now your business Bible. Those of you who are believers, who are Christian like myself, I don't have anything for those who don't believe. The Bible, like they say, the Bible is a book of life. So everything you want to do in life is, you can make reference and allusion to it in the Bible, for example, or in the Quran. So that becomes now the business Bible. Your policy and procedure manual now becomes now your standard operating practice, and it becomes your business Bible. Whoever is recruited to work in your company or to work on your business, when they get on board your team, the very first thing they have to start doing is to be able to understand the practices of your business, understand the policies of your company, so they can understand the do's and the don'ts. I take, for example, I have a client that I'm currently servicing. I'm consulting them. They have a policy that when the driver is on mission, official mission, wherever 6 p.m. meets you, you don't drive the company car after 6 p.m. So when you're planning your trip, you're going out for the business trip, when you're planning your trip, you have to understand that the company policy says by 6 p.m., the company vehicle must not be on the highway. So if you happen not to get your destination before then, whatever nearby town you find yourself by 6 p.m., you go lodge in a hotel or in an accommodation there, and then you notify management immediately. If you're able to get to your destination, fine and good. Now, some staff don't understand why this is like that, but you realize that the company policy is pegged to their insurance policy. Their insurance policy for the vehicle and the staff of the company doesn't cover the company when the vehicle is being used after 6 p.m. So the company realizes that if our company vehicle has an accident, on God forbid, after 6 p.m., our insurance policy doesn't cover us. So they prefer to spend money on the staff of the company by booking them or by making them sure that they can secure accommodation whatever they find themselves. They can cost them 50K, 100K to secure accommodation just so that the car doesn't drive in the night. Because when the car has an accident after 6 p.m. and they don't have support from the insurance company, they're going to spend far more than they spend for accommodation with the project team. So that is the policy. And when it is documented and it's communicated to the operating staff of a company, you are bound to respect that. You don't respect it, then you know what happens to you. Carrot and stick principle. So that is one example I'm giving you with regards to how advantageous it is for people to document their policies and procedures, and of course, we're able to communicate it to the team. When it comes to new employees recruit, when you are doing induction of a new staff member, the first thing you have to do is to be able to make sure that they have a grasp of the policies and the procedures. Of course, there are other documents which I have not mentioned here, like the code of conduct of a business. But if you elaborate the company policy and procedure document very well, of course, the first part of it has to enumerate who we are, the company, the mandate and corporate profile, the values and stuff like that, what we stand for. And of course, you're also supposed to mention the document. Sorry, the document must capture a section of it which talks about the ethics and the code of conduct. So those are elements that must come as preamble to the policy and the procedure manual. Once that is being done now, every new staff must have total mastery of at least the major headings of the policy and procedure manual that concerns their department and their functional unit. If they don't have that at the very beginning of the time they're on board the team, they need to make reference to it. Always refer to that document anytime you want to take a decision that you're not sure of what actions to take. You're not sure of how to go about things. Refer yourself to the policy and the procedure manual. It is very, very important. So, ladies and gentlemen, and the esteemed participants of the BND Africa Mini MBA program, I mentioned to you in the beginning that our presentation was supposed to focus on developing institutional strategic documents as a visionary executive. And what we have done so far, we've discussed 6 key strategic documents which enable us to become familiar with standard documents and prepare you to understand the importance of these documents and to be able to guide you in decision making and growth. So the first document as a rundown is the business plan. And I said the business plan covers the how and the what of a business. Then the next document is a strategic plan, which covers the when and the how. And I said earlier in the presentation that the business plan and the strategic plan are quite separate documents and they play two distinct roles. As a resume, the business plan can serve us three purposes. One of it is it can be used as an internal reference point for the internal team that is running the business. So the vision bearer documents their vision, and then it guides the management to be able to now know what is supposed to be done in the business and how it's supposed to be done. It can also be used to engage stakeholders. If you are a solo entrepreneur and you want to engage maybe a co-founder or maybe some people to join you want to share your business ideas with your mentor and your coach, for example, you can always share with the business plan and they can have an understanding of that. Then the last importance of a business plan is it can serve as a powerful tool for fundraising, where you can either secure investment from a bank, from venture capitalists, from the angel investors, etc., etc. And for a strategic plan, of course, it can also enable you to spell out strategy and the way you go about your business. And of course, you specify the key performance indicators of the milestones that you want to execute, so that when you carry out something, you are sure that the indicators can tell you whether you have achieved that milestone or you're not achieved that milestone. For example, if you want to hit a sales volume of 100,000 francs every month, of course, figures online, you should be able to set performance indicators and say after 1 month, if I don't have 100,000 francs in my cash till or in my bank account, then something is wrong somewhere. You now go back and adjust your strategy. So when the business plan and strategic plan has been elaborated, it gives you a broad-based long-term perspective of the business. Not everybody is a long-term thinker, but then it is now time for you to now break down the 3 to 5 years business plan or strategic plan into an action or operational plan. So people prefer quarterly plan, which is every 3 years. Some go for 2 months, some go for 1 month. The importance here is gain clarity as to your operations. Now spell out in the plan who is supposed to do what particular action, what is the expected timeline in terms of start date and end date, and who is taking lead in terms of carrying out a particular action step or activity or milestone. And of course, if they have to collaborate with some particular people like partners, like stakeholders, the action plan or operational plan also mentions that. And this is very, very easy to give team members an idea of their roles, because some people are not able to carve out a job description for a business at the very beginning. But you are sure to have a clear strategic plan and business plan, then you break it down into maybe 3 months, 2 months, or 1 month action steps, and you now put team members' name for this action. Prepare a marketing plan is Peter. To prepare a budget is John. To make telephone calls for early adopters is Mary. It now helps you to be able to carve out those activities, and then you now assign them to a particular individual on board your team, and they can serve as their job, their particular role, and particular assignment and tasks for that particular period. Once you have done that, the fourth document which I mentioned is organizational structure. And I said we have 2 of them. There is a structural organigram which depicts a clear picture of your company and your business at growth and at maturity. It shows you who will be the personnel need of your business at a particular point in time, and it shows you the ways you're going to do in your manpower planning to be able to fill those roles. But then the other aspect of an organizational plan, organizational structure, is the functional organigram, which is actually the key people who are running the business as at now. And it enables you to understand that with the volume of your operations that you have, you can get one person play multiple roles. People can play multiple roles at the beginning, and as your operations keep growing, You can now start in recruiting new team members on board, and then now people now play specific and key roles within the company or the organization. I also mentioned the master budget, which is the fifth document that we have to take into consideration. The master budget, of course, gives you an aggregation of the budget that comes from other functional units or other departments and other service units. When you put that together now, you're able to have a master budget for the entire company and for the entire organization. And the last document I mentioned is the policy and the procedure manual, which of course is something that takes time to develop, and you can develop it for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years because you keep changing it by trying to adopt best practices as your operational and action plan informs your actions in the field that are guided by your strategic plan and your business plan. And after these years, where you now have clear policies that define what procedure is supposed to take place and who is supposed to be involved, you now have what we now call a standard operating procedure or standard operating practice, which now becomes your Bible and your ultimate guide in your business. This document, the policy and procedure manual, is powerful in the sense that it is what helps vision bearers who want to become serial entrepreneurs. If you want to run multiple businesses, it is only when you have developed your business, your first business, into a standard operating procedure and practice that you can now document it and share with every staff member, that you can now say, when these people can implement this particular strategic plan or business plan, follow the procedures and the policies in place with the resources that are available and informed by the budget, then can you say you have set up a business that can grow on its own. Without this standard operating procedure or practice, people coming on board your business as employees will have challenges to know what to do, when, and who, what not to do, and all of that. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the little package I put together for us. Like I said, this list is not exhaustive. These are not all the documents that you need to have when it comes to institutional development as visionary executives. But then I think like these are the critical ones that can enable us to go a long way. I will now hand over to the moderator. I think I've exhausted my 1 hour. I'll now hand over to the moderator. This is a mini MBA program, and the presentation doesn't make any sense when it doesn't digest and it doesn't sync with the participants. So I'm so excited now with the second part of the discussion, which is Q&A session and clarification of what doubts that you might have. Mr. Moderator, over to you. And thank you very much for your patience.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the incredible session. I'm already seeing comments that it was an explicit presentation from the participants. That is incredible comments that we are getting already. So for my part, I have 3 questions, and the executives can get ready their questions. And my first question is, why do you think that many entrepreneurs and some executives minimize the development of some of these documents?
Thank you very much. That's a very powerful question. And it's right, you said they minimize. You know, with the experience with startups and early stage businesses, these documents takes a lot of expertise, a lot of insights to prepare them. And there's a popular saying which I always use: not all visionaries are managers. So people they can envision an idea, a business, but they cannot implement it and they cannot manage it. So sometimes it takes a lot of efforts, a lot of pains to be able to prepare this document. And they don't have the required skill set to prepare them, and maybe they don't have either the resources to hire experts to prepare them for them, and they tend to, let me not use minimize, they tend to shun away from it because they feel like it is a way to minimize costs, not to pay maybe a consultant or an expert to do those for them. And then, of course, some other people, some other business executives feel like, this is my idea. I have everything all clear in my head, and I can just go about doing things the way I know it is right in my mind. This is my project. This is my vision. I know the thinking. So it is a big error from the implementing phase. So we should shy away from that behavior of rushing into implementation when we have not come out to sit at that point where we can document the vision and build a business. Businesses are built 80% soft. By having these documents in place, operations and implementation becomes very, very easy for you. That is what I want to say.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, my second question is, there are a second group of people that actually get to prepare some of these documents, but they get to lose track of these documents. Like in the execution phase, they just execute like into thin air, and they are just working. They even check back on these documents and see if they're on track or if they're missing out. So what recommendations can you suggest to these executives, or what things can they put in place to ensure that they don't always lose track of these documents that they have developed, and always come back to them to make sure that they're on track, or even to improve on the documents and improve on their implementation?
All right. I think it's just about having the habit of what we call accountability check. Trying to monitor and to evaluate is very, very important. You see, there is this saying that when you are moving and you're not looking behind, you're never able to know how much you have covered as distance. So what I want to encourage this executive is that it is one thing to prepare this document, and it is also another thing to be able to live by the document. That is to say, having them to be your check and balances as you go along. So one of the reasons why most people may not come back to this document is because they get carried away. You know, as an entrepreneur and as an executive, sometimes you become so obsessed with your business and your business idea to the point where you are sinking and drowning in the vision, and you think that you are doing it well until you hit maybe you hit an obstacle, maybe you don't achieve a particular milestone, or you get into a particular failure situation, then you now realize that something is not going well. It's important to always do an evaluation. Like I said earlier in my presentation, business plan and strategic plan are broad-based thinking. They are long-term, 3 years, 5 years, for example. But the operational plan is very powerful. When you carve out a 3-month operational plan, or 2 months or 1 month, ensure that at the end of the period, at the end of the month, try to sit down with your team to be able to do an evaluation, what you set out to do and what you were able to do, what results you've achieved, and what made you achieve the results, whether they are positive results or negative results. That's where the learning process begins. If you are a solo executive or entrepreneur, you can still look at your reports, prepare your own reports of your business in terms of financial, in terms of operations, in terms of team building and the rest, and try to be able to do an evaluation. Then you now go back now to your document that you laid out in the beginning to try to find out, if I wanted to hit 10 customers in the first 1 month of my business, are you there? If not, why did you not get the customers? Then you're now going to twist your strategy, and then you now adapt it. It is very important to always come back to your drawing board at the early stage of your business and at a particular given point in time, because trust me, if you don't do it like that, you become guilty of a syndrome I call growing in your business versus growing on your business. So when you are implementing your business plan and whatever at a personal plan, you have to step back now and come out of the business and look at it now from the eye of an eagle, of a hawk, and say, this is no longer me in the business now. This is me now as an outsider trying to look at my report card and how well I've done. So it's a habit. And one way to go about it is make sure these documents are kept handy. Put them on your decks. Don't keep them in the drawers. So you're able to make sure that they remind you that you should be able to have these checks and balances. Schedule meetings ahead of time. In the next 3 months, we'll have an evaluation meeting. Put it on your calendar, inform your team, so that when the time comes, you are reminded that there's supposed to be an evaluation meeting. And of course, get an accountability partner or a coach or a mentor to always hold you accountable to your actions. This way, you are not carried away by implementing your business. You can come out of it and then do an evaluation to see how far you've gone and what you need to set right to make better results as executives.
Awesome. My last question, and the executives can continue from there. So you spoke about policies and so on. So what kind of policies should startups or young companies establish at the beginning phase of their operations?
At the beginning, it's very crucial and sensitive. I will want them to look at basic things. What is the problem that startups are facing? Most of them have challenges to raise funds. So what you want to look at is to prepare a financial management policy. So it starts disciplining even you, even as an executive, prepare a financial management policy for your business. It's very, very important at startup stage, so that you don't get to spend money because you see the money. You don't get to spend money anyhow. You always try to go to check what the policies say for you to spend money. Even if you are alone, even if you are 2 of you in your team, even if you are 3 of you in your team, it's important to respect procedure. I mentioned as an example that if you want to send an invoice to a client, you send an invoice. You want to receive money and then you want to send a receipt, you receive money as a person. But then if you don't know what it takes to spend money for your business, by documenting it in a financial management policy, you can just spend money because you have sentiments about spending money for your business. But if your policy is there, it guides you. The second policy after financial management policy is human resource management policy. It's very, very important because most often startups don't have the money they need to hire the team members they want to hire. But it's important for you to be able to spell out how you need to build your team and how to build your employees. So if you feel like everybody coming on board your company start as a volunteer, I must volunteer for X, Y, Z duration before you become integrated as a paid staff, document that. If you have a policy where once somebody is being hired, you must be able to train some other person for at least 6 months to 1 year in that same department, who can train some other person for a particular period, document that. So that you now start knowing fully well that you start hiring people who can align with your company policies and your company values. You don't bring in people who have competencies but they don't align with your company values. That mismatch is very crucial. The third policy I want to mention here is partnership policy. I see most of our executives and startup executives sit and say, because I'm running a project with Mr. Jobe or Mr. Peter, we are partners. No, you can collaborate for a particular assignment, but partnership is key. If you want to partner with a different company, if you are the one making the first move, what role is supposed to be there? You have to prepare a partnership policy document to be able to spell out that for you to partner with a company, you must first of all make sure that they align with you have a common ground in your vision, you have the same objectives, you share the same values, and then you spell out who does what in the partnership, who's going to give in what are you bringing on the table, and what are you going to get in return. And can you document this partnership and collaboration into an MOU? Spell all those things out. Who proposes the MOU first, and then who now makes inputs, and then you now validate it. All those things are good to be documented. So I've mentioned financial management policy, human resource management policy, partnership policies, and of course, you can now mention equipment and resource management policy. How do you manage equipment in the office? Who has the keys to the office? Who opens the door in the office in the morning and closes in the evening? Who's supposed to, how do you manage equipment? You go in the office, you work, and then you want to close in the evening, you leave the lights on. You leave on the computers. You have an office computer, you take it to your home as a personal computer. There are policies that state that company computers are supposed to be used only in the office, not at home. Other policies says that if you take a company computer in your home, don't store personal documents and files on the company computer. All those things have to be documented so you don't have abuse as people are using resources and equipment of the company. So if the list goes on and on, there are a huge chunk of policies you can implement. But for startups, I have just those 4. financial management policy, HR management policy, and you have partnership policy, and then equipment and logistic use policy. It's very, very important for startup executives.
Awesome. Great, great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Those are my questions. Executives, over to you. If you have a question, raise up your hand and I'll call your name. Or you indicate in the chat box. Question. Yes, Claudia, go ahead. Unmute yourself and go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, Claudia.
My question, thank you. My question comes like an example. Let me take, for instance, there are 4 co-founders.
Yeah.
And all of them make up the board of directors. And one of them is a manager. Then the 3 takes different executive rules that falls under the manager. Does it not cause conflict in the long run? Because all the executive, they are part of the board of directors, and the manager takes order from the board of directors, while all the executive, which are members of that board of directors, takes order from the manager. Does it not cause conflict along the line?
This is a very wonderful question, and I like questions that come from a practical experience. Now, is Claudia right?
Yes, sir.
All right. There's what we call the business ownership versus business management dynamics. So 4 of you own the company, and 4 of you are partaking in the management of the company. So what obtains here is that one person is the executive, is the CEO, and then the other ones are occupying positions that are under the CEO. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, when it comes to business management, what guides you is the organigram. When you look at the line, the line mapping of the organigram, if you're supposed to be answerable to the CEO, even if you have the highest number of shares in the company, just insofar as you are under the CEO in the organizational structure of the company, you must be responsible. You must be responsible enough to be answerable to the CEO, because at that level, you're talking about business execution and business management. When you get into the board of directors meeting, where the chairman of the board of directors is the person who is a big boss, you only use your powers as the chairman of the board of directors in the board meeting, not in the management meeting. So this is a matter of ego and complex. If we know fully well that Clara is the best CEO of our company and we are 4 of us, even if I am the driver, because I can drive at that time, I must take instruction from Clara, because we are in the dynamics of the structural implementation of the business. So we don't bring in business ownership dynamics and the paradigm of who is big or who all of us own the business in the management of the business. It is a very wrong approach to take. So co-founders should be able to understand that when you want to manage your own business, don't bring sentiments from ownership of the business into management of the business. Talk management of day-to-day business in the management of the business, and then talk ownership if you meet in the board of directors meeting. So you have to be humble enough, sensitive enough to know that the person who is CEO is because all of you 4 cannot be CEO, and that person is the person who has the most appropriate skill set and experience to be CEO. So give him maximum support as CEO and report and try to be able to be answerable to him or her to the best of your ability, because you are a subordinate as per the organigram of the company. Put aside ownership and the dynamics of business ownership aside, then you are good to go. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, I answered my question. I was a little bit confused on this because one person in my team said, it can cause a little bit of conflict. So it's good that it should be on a temporal basis, like the order should be executive on a temporal basis. Thank you for your answer.
Just before you go, I prefer that you consider having your board of directors to be rotatory. So you have a chairman or board president, it can be for 1 year or 2 years, and then the other person becomes that, because you meet maybe once a year or quarterly. When it comes to management, you are not doing your business any good to bring a partner to be CEO who hasn't got the competencies. It's not because he's a partner, he must be CEO. He mustn't be CEO. But if he has the competencies to be CEO, fine and good. So if within the 4 of you, only 2 persons can be CEOs of your company, then this person can be CEO for the next 1 or 2 years as you choose to be. But then the other 2 must not be CEOs. And you should be honest with yourself to say that CEO position is a technician position. It's not about because I want to be, to people know that I am part of the ownership team. So make me to be CEO. Permit me that expression. No, it's not like that. You can do that in the board of directors, not in the management team. You get the point?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
And it also takes humble people to even get a neutral person who is an employee to be a CEO of their company, and then they work under an employee. It depends on your skill set and how you can deliver best result in a particular given role. It's very, very crucial. And please make sure that whoever you are choosing to be CEO of your company from your team, the 4 of you, has the competencies and can deliver the goal, not because the person is part of the ownership of the business. It's very crucial.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yes, Mr. Boris, go ahead. Boris, are you there? Okay, anybody else?
Good evening, Mr. Ekuh.
Good evening.
Yes, please. My own question comes on the procedural manual. How flexible should the procedural manual be? Because I think I once worked with BIAC. I saw the accounting procedural manual there that has lasted like forever. Now,
yeah.
But my question is, how flexible can it be? And if it is that flexible, does it not spoil its constitutionality? Like for instance, the constitution of the country is something that is rarely touched, but the laws they are always revised. So in the business, how does that apply? Like where is that? What's that document that you can always tell her to fit the operations of the business, while it's its founding norms are kept in place for everyone to know? What is that document that you can really use to keep on reflecting the realities of a company as its policies and everything, apart from its procedural manual?
So you're asking for what other document can serve the role of procedural manual?
Yes, so that we can get that flexibility which can reflect day-to-day experience of the company.
All right. From the standpoint of corporate vocabulary, there is no better document to replace those. It is a policy and procedural manual. But now, from your question, I understand your dynamics. The policy document is what remains like our constitution of the country, Cameroon, that doesn't change very easily. So the policy is, if you are, what's your name again, please?
Yeah, I'm Mr. Boris Foku.
Okay, Mr. Boris. So, Boris, if they want to go for leave, the policy says that when you're going for leave, you are entitled to 28 days of leave. When you are going for leave, you must apply for leave 3 months before your date of departure, so they can replace with the temporary staff. When you are going for leave, you don't have any payment when you're going for leave. Or when you're going for leave, you are paid half your salary. Those are policies. They are always there and they hardly change. But now, the procedure now is what can always change, like the laws of the country versus the constitution. So I don't know which other term I can use to call that, but whichever appellation you can give it to your company, it boils back to the same thing. The policies document what is supposed to be done, and then who is supposed to do it. The procedure now is, how is this supposed to be done? When is it supposed to be done? I take, for example, if you want to disburse money, there are some amount of money that a cashier can disburse without going to the accountant. So the cashier has the power to be able to disburse 50K, for example. That is because the policy states that. But then procedure says that were you to disburse money, the person who needs the money to be spent must make a requisition. Then the manager must be able to visa it before the cashier disburses it. So if the policy says that a cashier can disburse 50,000 francs within their powers, any amount above that is not within their powers, can go to the accountant. Doesn't mean that the cashier can disburse that money without following due process of asking the person who's going to spend the money to fill a purchase requisition or a requisition order, then goes to the management or HR department to validate it before coming back to the cashier to disburse the money. So what I want to say here is that for the flexibility out of it, the policies always stand for a long period of time. Then when you are implementing it by carrying out the procedure, the repercussion of the procedure is what now informs management to be able to now see which of the policies they need to go and twist, they need to go and adjust. That's why we call it standard operating procedure or practice. For it to be standard, it takes a long time to be standardized. And it is the procedure of implementing the policies that have been laid down that now makes us to adopt or to adjust the policies by now making them now procedural and then to operationalize the policy. In some companies, the policies is a different book altogether, and the procedures is a different book. So you now look at the policy of financial cash disbursement or the policy of maybe budgeting. They now go and now spell it out now inside the procedure manual. So some companies have the policy manual versus the procedure manual. You want to hire a new staff, for example, you must, the policy says that you must first of all give preference to people who are in the company, and then if they want to change position or they want to upgrade, you not let them know. Policy says that you must advertise the job position to the public. Policy says that you must conduct interview and recruit the best fit. Policy says that you must have at least 3 months probation, and then it can be renewable once, or it cannot be renewable. That is policy. Now, as an HR manager or as executive, you should be able to make sure that you respect this procedure to be able to operationalize the fact that you want to hire a staff. And then, if in the course of hiring a staff, you realize that the timing is not on your side, then the policy can be twisted that if you want to hire a particular staff, you must not respect the duration altogether. Policy says you must do induction for at least 1 week. Procedure must be that you must do induction. And then you now have a feedback report on that. So policies can be the constitution of our country, which of course can only be revisited when the procedure of implementing the policies inform us that something must be adjusted. Then you now go and adjust it. So you can always vote new laws all the time, regularly, to be able to suit the policies or the constitution, but then it takes a long time for these things to be standardized. That's why we call it standard operating practice or procedure. And if it is standardized, it mustn't be 100% respected for the next 50 years. No. As the time unfolds, you can always adjust them and change them. Take, for example, your policy talks about human resource planning. When COVID comes, you lay off workers. When in your policies, you're supposed to lay off workers and then maybe you pay them what you call redundancy payment. But because of COVID, you lay them off now because of COVID and not because they were incompetent or because you don't have needs for them anymore. So at that level now, you have to now look for me to go and now revisit your policy. Now, in the case of force majeure, like a pandemic, you have to do the needful. So COVID-19, for example, is a way to go inform executive that you should be able to twist some angles in your policies, because for you to be able to implement them in the procedures of your day-to-day business running, it takes a lot of challenges. I don't know if that answers your question.
it does not only answers, but it gives the example on which I wanted to use the answer for, especially for the COVID case, the force majeure. Thank you.
Right, exactly. Thank you very much. For example, policy says that don't take company computer to the house, work in the office and live in the office. But because of COVID-19 measures, your company wants to be in line with the barrier measures. It's okay, now let's not work from home. You must not go now and now change the policy that you cannot take computers from the office to the home. But now, the procedure, you must now have to put in place now a procedure that you have to fill a form and the HR decks that this person has taken this particular computer with these specifications to their house to work. So you have to now update now a procedure manual now to be able to now operationalize now your policy of taking computers to the house now, of which in the beginning computers were left only in the office. That is it.
Yeah, even office documents. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Good. Any other questions? Yes, Honorine, go ahead.
Good evening,
Good evening, Honorine.
The wonderful presentation. I am looking at the image that is being projected now, and I'm just wondering, in a typical project situation, like in a company where projects are their major kind of work, I wonder how this image projected really works, because when we talk of SOP in a project, we are talking of procedures per maybe item. Let me take an example. Maybe we say the civil work, this is how it's going to happen. The electrical works, this is how they are going to happen. The manuals, the tools we need and everything. So I'm wondering, when you put institutional strategic documents, you list them out equal to standard operating procedure, is it contextual to the company as a whole? Or if you would want to narrow it down to projects, do we have the same thing? Is it as complex as this when you narrow it down to projects within a company, when you're talking of the SOP?
All right.
Particular...
Thank you very much. I think a project is being implemented or is being owned or is being hosted by a company. Is that right? And when you have a project, it doesn't take the company out of the picture. So this is not possible to be considered when it comes to a project. Of course, you can do a business plan for a project, but you cannot do an organizational structure for a project. You just need to build a project team, for example. And then you know that projects are being implemented within an organization. So if you are building a project team, there is always a separation of some practices that a project team does, of course, but it must tie with an organizational team. For example, if a company has a project to open a new office, a new branch office somewhere, that's a project. For you to be able to carry out that project, you must respect the basic principles and procedures that the organization has in place. So if you want to do a business plan for that project, fine and good, or it's a project proposal or whatever it takes, fine and good. So it is difficult to carve out or to situate this within the context of a project. So I also want you to see that a project or a whole organization can also be termed as a project. And not all of these things lead to standard operating system. It is the policies and the procedures alone. I just put this graph so it becomes a summary picture of, if you do this as a practice, people do businesses without a business plan. People run businesses without an operational plan. People don't have a organizational structure. They just go ahead doing things and then recruit team members based on the needs on what they want them to do. But we are trying to come out with a scenario which is the best practice of what obtains, the standards of what obtains. So for the project, it is difficult to situate this within the context of a project. But then there are elements within the policies and the procedures that a project team has to respect, because that project team is coming from a particular company or organization. It doesn't mean that because you're working on a project, you have been delinked from the company or the organization. You have to respect those things. Also, there are some particular projects that will entail that you cover procedures and policies strictly only for that project, because maybe the founder of that project, maybe the partnership of that project, maybe the model of implementing that project has to be twisted to respect norms which are not 100% exact to those of your company. Then it can go like that. But yes, this is not standard. This is not standard for projects, but it's always pegged to the organization that owns the project or project team is working on the project.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Good. Any other question? Yes, Boris is coming back. Yes, Boris.
All right, Boris.
Yes, when I got the title of our class today, what I thought was what I thought of was some understanding the dynamics on how to better come out with a good a memorandum of association article, a contract, how people can create good contracts between partners and everything, how to create that balance between territoriality and duration, like which objectives should guide your thoughts of choosing the duration which you want your business to last, or you're choosing the extent to which your business should cover. That means that if it is, you cover only Cameroon and everything. I don't know, is it still part of this are my thoughts part of this subject, like the documents which developing institutional documents as a visionary executive?
Of course, it is. I think one of the things which I got when I received the instructions from management is I was focusing on I was focusing. I think I was focusing on documentations that will enable view visionaries to be able to make decisions that are right for your business and then to grow your business well. So let's say I cut the presentation or cut the process at the level of execution or pre-execution.
Yeah.
Like I said, this list is not exhaustive. So if it goes back to the normal. If I remember the question that was asked by was it Clara about the 4 partners. These things are supposed to be spelled out in the deed of partnership or in the partnership agreement. So how you relate in the business as business managers is how you document it and agree in your deed of partnership. So yes, I agree with you that those documents too are also very, very important. But I lacked foresight to think of those because I was focusing more on strategy development and strategy implementation. But I agree with you that what you are mentioning is so critical. And I can use it as an example for the case we have in hand now for the 4 partners, that how they are going to manage their business as business managers is supposed to be documented in their partnership deed. And that document is always notarized. You have your, what you call it, MOU, or you have partnership contract or partnership agreement. Most people call it partnership deed. That document is always notarized. And then it guides you now on how to go about your business. Article of association, yes, of course, it is a business structure that guides you on how you need to be your article of association and what legal structure you want to take. So if I did not mention those, it's because of the rationale that was given to me that we need, because I asked for the expected outcome, is so that participants can become familiar with various standard documents that executives should prepare, and then their importance on how they can either make decisions for the business and then grow exactly well. So if there is a gap in that area, I want to plead for your consideration and say I can always make up to that. We can have a one-on-one on that. I can prepare something else and add to that if you feel need for some other documents that are challenging. And this is the reason why I like mBA program or programs that are practical, like CBMD is doing. We don't talk from abstract. We talk things that are happening. And it's important for us to ask questions that connect to your business and the things that you do. So trust me, guys, this is very, very important, and I'm happy that you're coming from that angle.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. And also, it's good to note that there are some of those documents that you may have to outsource them to legal experts because they are better in a better position to do that. Like these documents that Eddie has shared, these are things that every executive should do. But things like constitutions and even sometimes in some kind of partnerships, you should always consult a legal expert to throw more light in that area. And some of the things are policy things. So if you're able to understand what a policy is, you can develop several policies that can bind you as an institution for some of your decisions. Okay, another question? It seems that is the last question that we had. Okay, apart from that, thank you so much, Eddie, for creating almost 2 hours of your day to share this explicit presentation with us all. I know that there are many people here that have learned so much, and their businesses will be much better. And Eddie sharing his contacts, WhatsApp, email, connect with him on LinkedIn. Very, very important. We strongly encourage our executives to connect with our guest speakers and among ourselves. So thank you so much, Eddie, and thank you everybody for creating time for this guest speaker series. And of course, see you tomorrow and after tomorrow for another guest speaker series. We'll be coming in with finance and accounting and tax issues in Cameroon. All right, people, you have a good night.
Thank you very much. Please feel free to cut